Everybody, this is Jim. Jim, you know, and you would have met George and Simon and John from the last one. Angela.
I didn't speak that night.
Angela and Tony and Amanda and Michael. Okay, so there we are.
You want me to jump in?
You may sit down to start with because we're still waiting for.
Oh, we're gonna give you a son.
Yeah, let him get here. I don't know.
We live in hope.
We live in hope, exactly. He said he's on the way, but who knows with traffic. Shall I try and see where he is?
No, you text
Who
me.
knows, who knows how to trace people on yeah, I will leave
I
it.
turned that off
Exactly.
on my phone.
Yeah, good idea. I mean, I only have it with one.
You just text him
One
and say,
friend.
far away.
Yeah. Best way to
So
say
if
it.
it's just your own.
Yeah.
Chance.
Well, he said it would probably be a little bit after 5 or 6:30.
Tell you what, while you're doing that, I might grab a coffee.
Yeah, go ahead. No, all right, that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's a lot warmer here than up there, that's for sure. Sure.
Well, I don't know about.
That's the thing.
Why do you think you don't have any?
Oh, it's not mine.
No, I mean, if you don't believe in ancestors, what else do you have?
I would prefer to get straws from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got 2 uncles left, and I haven't been in contact with them for some time.
That would be a very good idea.
And I'm loath to reconnect with them because of my agenda. But I ought to just write to them and say hi,
Might help.
and then maybe in a couple of years after that.
Couple of years, they
Couple
might
of
be
years
gone,
after-
they might be
couple of years
gone.
after that,
Do it today, don't do
I'll,
it tomorrow.
Right,
Thank you so much.
Thanks, mate.
tell me what you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
That's the last.
Yeah, that's right. Much more. What's your time? Where did you go? Come and sit down. So you are the family representatives today. Everybody else is sick. Anna and Nick.
All right.
And family.
I might just do my little introduction.
Sure.
And then
Yes.
I'll hand
Yeah.
over to
Yeah. Yeah.
Alrighty, hi everyone. Thanks for braving this cold evening and joining us for the launch of My Heart to Yours by Irena Kobald. Firstly, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we're currently on, the Yagara and Turrbal people. We're also live streaming this event, so I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which you're all joining us from on Zoom tonight. I pay my deepest respects to elders past and present. Sovereignty has never been ceded. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Just some housekeeping. If you do need the bathroom, they're just inside and upstairs. The bar will be open during and after the event. At about 7:20, we might go to questions if anyone has them, or just see how we're going. And then if you would like to purchase a copy of My Heart to Yours, they're inside at the counter. And then afterwards, you're welcome to move inside, have a chat to Irena and purchase a copy. So now I'd like to introduce our author for tonight, Irena. She's the author of 2 children's picture books, My Two Blankets and The Dream Peddler. In 2015, My Two Blankets won the prestigious Children's Book Council of Australia Award and was also shortlisted for the Prime Minister's Literary Award. And she's also just told me that it has been sold rights for a stage production, which is incredible. Irena has worked in a wide range of remote schools in the Northern Territory, taught German in Queensland high schools and English as a second language to both adults and children. She also has a master's degree in Russian. Please join me in welcoming Irena and Jim.
Thank you.
My turn. Is that my introduction?
Yes.
I'm not gonna
Thank
introduce
you.
myself. Well, look, just so you know, I'm Jim Madden.
We met
I haven't
many
been
years ago.
introduced. I'm Jim Madden. I'm a member of Parliament, but please don't hold it against me. I was previously a horticulturalist, so I think I'm eminently qualified to talk about Irena's latest book.
That's exactly right.
But I'd like to say that, just talk about how I know Irena. I was once a lawyer, had a country practice, and I practice in Laidley. I think there might be a few former Laidley people here tonight, and that's where I met Irena.
Yeah.
And since then, I've followed her career with great interest. I was here in 2014 for the launch of my two blankets, and then at another date at Stones Corner,
That's
I was
right.
there for the Dream Peddler.
Peddler, yeah.
But this book, that's what we're here to talk about tonight, this wonderful book. And as I said, as a horticulturalist, I think I'm sort of qualified to say a few words about it. I looked it up and I sort of borrowed a description of the book. And, yeah, a book is an amazing collection of bio art. The designs and patterns Irena has created are taken from whatever nature presents at the time. And I remember previously, I can't remember exactly where it was, near Toowoomba somewhere where I visited you at the house. I actually saw her, doing these presentations in real life on a table. And it was the most amazing thing. I'm just looking at it thinking, I might have done a few things in my life, but I could never have done anything like this. And I guess, being here tonight, we're just talking about bookshops disappearing, And, books for me, they've been part of my life. I mean, it probably shows my age, but when I think about books like Catcher in the Rye and Australian books like Jono, and even books like John Grisham's books, they fashion how you are. In a way, they sort of set your equilibrium and your what we call our moral compass. And in a way, and Irena's contributing to that with her book tonight. And she certainly contributed in that way with her two previous books. I mean, I often have to describe my two blankets to my friends. I speak with great pride the fact that I know Irena through my two blankets, and I think every time I give a different explanation of what my two blankets was, but I enjoy it every time. And I think that's what books are about.
So tell me, what do you say?
Okay. Well, I say this. First of all, I say it's a true story.
Yeah.
I say that's to begin with. I say it's a true story. And of course, African culture is something we're sort of even now still getting used to. I wouldn't see it, living in Ipswich, and I go to a lot of school ceremonies, I wouldn't see an African face. But just in the last few years, I just went to the Westmac Founders Day, and one of the school captains there, obviously of African appearance. And I think your book was my first introduction to the difficulties faced by Africans coming to Australia. And there's a fantastic series on the ABC called You Can't Ask That. And it's the most amazing concept of a show. Basically, if you sort of imagine, you get 20 people in, you interview them individually, and you give them a pile of cards. And they just pick up the cards each time and answer the question. And and there's no interviewer, it's just them talking. And then they edit it and sort of splice it all together. And one of them was about Africans and their experiences coming to Australia. And it just so much reminded me of your book, Irena, when I saw the episode. And you can watch it on YouTube, by the way. You don't have to go into iView. You can watch it on YouTube. And there's all these other things about it as well. I mean, there was one about ex-footballers and Aussie rules, rugby league, rugby. The thing they had in common was they all turned into drunks when their career ended because they just fell off the cliff, But they were prepared to admit it. They were prepared to admit it, and they all get their lives back together. And but if you ever get a chance to see it, it's called You Can't Ask That. But with regard to this book, this is a wonderful lady sitting here. She's once again produced magic. She produced it twice before, and she produced it again. And I think we should all put our hands together to congratulate her.
Yes. Okay, so
Pick up your check outside.
Autographed copy of the book.
now Jim was talking about the patterns that I do. This I'm wearing one today.
Yes.
So that's what you can do with this bio art. And I thought maybe we can make it so that if you want to ask questions, please ask questions, whatever you would like to know. And I will go through the book, talk about how it came to be. And what I could say about the origin of my bio art is really when I was working in the Northern Territory, these remote communities. I was really ashamed of the amount of plastic rubbish that I saw lying around everywhere, because every school gets bombarded with deliveries from mainstream that get brought out to these remote communities, because everybody thinks they need to have this, and we need to expose Indigenous children to the same resources as mainstream children. And a lot of times they get looked at, they get filled up with for a little while, and then they get dumped. And they're left to lie on the ground, and the wind blows them away. And usually around remote communities, you have a sea of rubbish, plastic in all colors. It looks quite pretty until you realize it's all plastic. And it takes ages for the stuff to break down. And I, on the other hand, I saw all the nature pieces that were also lying on the ground. And so I started making things out of what I could find on the ground that were natural. And so one of the first ones I made was this one here, and which is here very much in the beginning of the book, which are Karajong seed pods. And maybe Jim can give us the Latin word. I always thought I wanted to include the Latin names for it. It's brachychiton, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's brachychiton. And I have always been fascinated how nature gives us so many ingredients for free. Wherever we go, no matter what time of the year, there's always something flowering, there's always something sprouting. And if it has finished, it's still beautiful and you can still make something out of it. And so I started making hearts, I started making mandalas, I started making Australian shapes and so on. So whatever I could come up with. The one I'm wearing is another one where I just used gum nuts, 3 different gum nuts and a few tiny little paper daisies that I put together on Todd River sand. Has anybody been to Alice Springs, John? You have been, of course. And we walked in the Todd River, didn't we? Full moon. Tony has been there. So, yeah, you've been in Alice Springs too, exactly, even in Tennant Creek. And the Todd River is a really special river because unless you have experienced it, it's hard to describe, because it's one of the driest rivers around, because it hardly ever has water in it. But it has a great history, and I felt like using the sand of this river that has experienced so much is all part of what I put into my artwork. And so I've used it quite a few times, but that aside, I made these hearts, and the hearts that I collected for this book come from all kinds of places where I have traveled, where I have been. This one here, for example, was made on Magnetic Island 2 years ago, I think, and they are the cones from the Mandala tree. And there had been a bushfire just a little while before, and so the ground was really singed and black, lots of ash lying around, and even the Mandala fruit was partially singed. So it created a really, really strong contrast. And down here at the bottom, you can't see too well here, but there was a little bit of green where nature was coming back again. So nothing is used in these pictures that is man-made. It's all nature. And for me, the whole idea of this art form is to use only what nature provides, no, not including any man-made ingredients. And certainly I never try to fix them. I do not want them to last. So the idea is to be prepared that when a wind comes or somebody runs over it or whatever happens, that it will be destroyed within a moment. So not becoming attached to it. And I find that's a very therapeutic aspect, because we, in our world today, we want to hang on to everything and we want to have everything permanent. Nothing is permanent. So this one here is a very different one. It's actually made in my kitchen on a dinner plate, and it's salt and peppercorns. And so I just used a packet of peppercorns and put them up, you know, in the shape of a heart with tweezers. So each peppercorn is put in place with tweezers, and that's about it. And the whole idea again is that I do this in silence. I have since the last 2 years, I've been doing workshops with various people doing this artwork, and most recently in Toowoomba at the Nanda Youth Mental Health Unit. And we did similar things. And the way the kids, these young kids responded to this type of artwork was just heartwarming to see, because they just loved it.
Irena, would you be able to show the camera as well so everyone on Zoom
Sorry.
can see the images
Okay,
too?
sorry,
Thank
yeah. This one here looks like as if you can smell it, because it's made of orange or mandarin, organic mandarin peel. I was at work and a lady came in with a bag of mandarins. And I said, oh, could I have that, please? So took the bag home and peeled the mandarins, sliced them up into thin strips, and then rolled them into spirals, and then put them into icing sugar. And when I had finished with this one, I did reprocess it and made orange liqueur out of it. So I collected the skin and steeped it in vodka, and then made lemon, or not lemon cellar, but a form of lemon cellar with it. This one was one of the most labor-intensive ones that I made for a friend in Lady who died at the end of last year. And knowing that he was a great cook and loved the spice cumin, I used cumin seeds, and cumin seeds are about that big. So I worked on this heart for 9 hours, a whole day, and drove to the cemetery. And 1 minute, 1 kilometer before the cemetery, there was this almighty bang, and everything was scattered. But I had the photograph of it, and I put in, for me, it's always a meditative process to create what I create, because I don't plan it, it just comes to me. And so the big heart is supposed to be for the friend who died, and then that's his wife, and these are his children. And the little heart, and if you look carefully at this picture, you can see that all the lines are double, except for this little one is only single. And the reason why I made this little one single is because we met through that baby. They expected a 5th baby and unfortunately died, but that's how we met. And so the baby only lived for 2 days, and we've been friends since then. So that baby is inside the mother's heart. And when the daughters saw the heart and when they heard the story, everybody was in tears. It was really quite sad, but also very beautiful, because he was a great chef and he loved cooking, and I love cooking too, except I don't like cooking. But that was my dedication for him. And the interesting thing that happened while I was making it, I was listening to Enya. And then I come to the funeral, and as they are taking the coffin out of the cemetery, which music are they playing? Enya. It was just perfectly beautiful. So that was that one. This one was made in the desert, as you can see by the red sand, in one of the first communities where I lived for a longer period of time, called Walaura or Wiliyacharai in Warlpiri. And I used the pods of the, what's it called again? Hold on. The abutilon plant, which is fairly common in the desert. So the green parts are the unopened buds. The ones that look a little bit more full, they still have the seeds in it, and the ones that are creamy, pale, they are the ones where the seeds have already fallen out. So I have discovered if you use the ingredients of one plant only, you create the biggest harmony in a picture. If you use too many pictures, too many pieces of different plants, it becomes too scattered. So the best effect you create with using just one plant and the different parts of one plant. And I made this for Mother's Day to show the different stages that we go through as mothers with the love of our children. Because sometimes they drive us up the wall, and other times we feel like we could eat them up, especially while they're small.
Not me.
This one was actually made in Laidley, and it was No.
Okay.
This one, Matthias was the one who recognized immediately what this was. Black boy. We're not supposed to say black boy. We're supposed to say grass tree,
Oh.
scales, and paper daisies. And again, a very simple combination, but simply beautiful in the contrast in color and everything. This one was made in Ambladowicz, or was it could be Allora, with gum nuts only. And what I find is, again, when I do this, you take one ingredient, one type of gum nut, and you realize how individual each gum nut is. Just like human beings, we all have got a head and two legs and arms and everything, but there's so much individuality in each gum nut. So that's what I find so satisfying working with nature that way, because what I get back from it. And by creating this artwork, I can give it back to people in a different way. This one here was made in Toowoomba, outside a house called Magnolia House. And they were all, I was waiting to see somebody, and I saw all these things lying on the ground. So I get this funny twitch in my fingers, and I have to make this. Okay. This one was made in Austria, and it's made with rose hips. George, you would know rose hip?
Yes.
From England, because it's something we don't have much in Australia, but it's very, very therapeutic, very high in vitamin C. And in Austria, you make jam with it, you make tea with it, all kinds of things. And it's part and parcel of Austrian autumn, beautiful, bright red color. And I put it on sword, so it's also reminiscent of the Austrian flag, which is red, white, red. Some people thought they were cherry tomatoes. So I had to correct that one. Yes. This one is the Tibucina blossom. And I made that outside the school. Yeah, outside the school where I do most of my supply work in Toowoomba, which is Clifford Park Special School. And it was pouring with rain, and I got myself soaked while I was making it. But the brightness of the purple against the beautiful, lush, juicy green was just something I couldn't resist. And so there it is, Tibucina heart. Then we have one made with star anise, again, a spice for something for Christmas, which really fills the house with a lovely smell. And I set it into icing sugar also. And if you look again carefully, you can see how each star of anise is individual. And yet they all produce this beautiful fragrant aroma that you can use in so many types of cooking. This one will be familiar to Angela and Tony. This is something I made for a special young man whom we said goodbye to this year. And it was interesting because I found the blossoms of the red cedar in Toowoomba at a school where I was working for the time. And I thought that's what I'm going to use. And it was not afterwards that out of red cedar, and so we then gave hands of the sand and the flowers and put them into the grave, and the rest went into it as well. So that was very, very special. And the red sand was to remember him also because they had a really great time while they were in the Northern Territory. Totally different one from the very far north of Finland, a place called Akkaslompolo. And it's an hour and a half north of Rovaniemi. About 10 hours drive north of Helsinki, an area where 6 months winter, grass that was in the area there. And this was autumn, trekking over there more. And I just saw this on the ground and I had to make this. What happened with this heart was it was covered with snow, almost 3 meters of snow during the winter. And then the same bushwalking group went back there the year after, and the pine cones were still there. So it survived probably temperatures of minus 40, 45, but the pine cones were still there. So that was really special. This one is a very fragile one, with only jacaranda blossoms. I made that at Clifford Park, where I do most of my supply work. It's a special school where we have all kinds of children who need special support. And this girl, very autistic and very peculiar in what she liked doing, but she was absolutely fascinated with making this heart. And it really made her day to see that this looked so good. And it was on a stainless steel table, so you can't see that so much. But yes, it was very, very special for her. This one here is made with the shells of the she oak, and a very interesting plant. I don't know if you have had much to do with it. You don't see them very often.
It's casuarina.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ah.
It's a common name in she oak, but it's casuarina.
Right, right. No, sorry, not she oak. Sawtooth oak. Sawtooth. Sorry, she oak is casuarina. That's it. And the interesting thing, the nuts actually look a bit like Maltesers, but anything but. So again, in Toowoomba, this one here is the only one that has survived. I still have it at home. And the interesting part of this one is that now the surface is actually firm. The salt has firmed up because it has absorbed the moisture in the air, and the caraway seeds are sitting in place. If you look carefully, you can see that each caraway seed is separate and yet together. So that's again the whole idea of doing this, that you put things together, but you also give them space. Just like we should try and live as people together, but give each other space. And caraway is a spice that is very much used in Austrian cooking. And it's one that I love in many, many ingredients. And that's why I decided I would make this one. This one was a very spontaneous creation in Hong Kong while I was there to visit a school. And these are the leaves of the Indian almond tree, and beautiful bright red color. And I just collected them and made them right there on the pavement. It was quite interesting to see how people reacted. The last one, you might remember that one. I made that in Toowoomba at the Camellia show. And I made this big heart. And towards the end of the show, this little girl came up with her mum and she sat herself right into the camellias and didn't want to leave. So that was 2018. Here in the back, you have a little bit about, if I can get to it. This is, if you have a careful look, it's something I made at the farmers market, organic farmers market in Toowoomba. Usually when I go to do some demonstration at the farmers market, I use whatever is produced available at the farmers market that can't be sold. And so these were cherry tomatoes that were too soft to be sold. And the sunflower heads had broken off from the stalks. So they couldn't be sold anymore. They were going to go into the bin. And so I said, can I have them? And I made this out of it. And kids just loved it. So again, no cost and no ecological footprint. And then here in the back, this gives you a preview of what is to come. This is one of the Australia designs I have made with just gum nuts, which also took me quite a few hours. This one is here, the one that you can see on here. And this is a mandala shape that I made with button grass and buffalo grass and paddy melons. Because a lot of times you find out a lot of history of the ingredient that I use, and there's usually a conflict between imported and native grasses or plants. And especially in the desert, you become very much aware of that. So I will probably keep doing this because I get so much enjoyment out of it. And now I feel like I'm able to share this with the wider world. And what has happened with the book is it has been used at funerals, at weddings, and any heart moment. So that people basically choose one of their favorite designs and they write their own words into it, and then it gets given to the person as a present of the moment. And so that's one use that you can use it for, and any other time where you feel like you want to have a special gift for a special person, from your heart to yours, to mine. Questions? Now, the horticulturalist.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite ingredient? What was the one that really knocked you? You know, you thought this is just
It's very hard to say because they are all, there's a lot of memory with each one of them. And can I ask you, Angela, would you like to talk about this one?
Okay.
Only if you want to.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, sadly, we lost our second son earlier this year, and Irena came to the funeral bearing this big plate with the heart, and I can't tell you how strangely satisfying it was as a mother to approach that image, and I just reached into it and felt the sand, and I just gave it to my son. I can't really put into words what that moment was like, but there was just something so deeply satisfying, given the permission to approach a beautiful image like that and do what I needed to do in that moment, which was to take the center of the heart and just
Give it back.
place it
Yeah.
in the, yeah. So it was very powerful, and it was very, it felt very good. Felt very good in such a.
And it felt so good to pour it into the grave at the end, to make it go back. That was beautiful. So that was one very special moment. This one is also a bit quite personal for me. I made this heart for a Finnish man that I met, whom I fell in love with a bit, and I remember him standing in front of this heart and looking at it, typically Finnish, you know. But it was, everybody loved the heart from this group, and the sad thing was he has also passed away, and when he died, I made this heart. And so there's lots of emotion in this book, just through the hearts that has come through. And for me, when I get emotional about something, I will go and make something. And a lot of times it will be a heart. This one here, of course, is Austria. And just looking at that alone gives me, you know, I remember where I was when I collected the rosehip. I remember the smell of the rosehip, the salt and making it, and the people that I was with when I made it. And home is where the heart is. And again, all the quotations that I have included with this work is that I felt like I wanted them to match what the artwork is saying, but also to stand on their own. And it's all about the heart and what we feel at different times. And I think also what I wanted to emphasize was that, like this artwork is ephemeral, so are our emotions. And if this book can help you to realize that good or happy emotions disappear and bad emotions disappear, they will come again. And so will nature bring us again new things, and I can make something else. Any more questions?
I'm actually curious as to how you went about making your photos into fabric.
Okay, very simple. I mean, I like photography as well. And so this one here, as I said, I made on a big tray when I was still living in Alice Springs. And it has quite a bit of an indigenous character to it. And perhaps I was inspired partially by what I saw around me, because I think, you know, art inspiration goes both ways. And because I feel like I want to honor the land that I'm standing on. And so creating this, and then you can upload these photographs and you get them printed. And there are different companies that do that. And today you can do just about anything. Mm-hmm. My son got a collection of neckties for his birthday that I used the same.
I actually have the matching one.
It's
in my car.
Just you should have grabbed it if you're not too far. Yeah, okay, never mind. Okay. So with today's technology, you can do anything. And that's why when I do workshops now that I am like, this is what we did with the Ananda group in Toowoomba, that they could then use their favorite design to create something out of it, and they take that away with them, and that's what they can keep. But the actual design disappears and it leaves no footprint.
I love that you're able to wear your art. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Have you always been interested in photography? Or is this a diversion from also your children's writing that you used to do?
I think the artwork really started, as I say, in the Northern Territory, simply as a protest against the amount of plastic, because I feel like I get so much satisfaction out of working with natural ingredients. And when I can show people or children, you know, how easy it is to make something out of so-called nothing. Only the day before yesterday, I was again in a special education unit, and there was a boy, and I wish I could have filmed it. You could just see how he became absorbed in what he was doing. And he was just sitting there and grinning all over his face. And he told me he's going to go home and do this with his little sister. And I thought that was my biggest reward, to know that I have inspired somebody else. And I was able to make somebody happy. And he stayed, you know, I'm going home happy today. And I feel like, what else can you wish for? And it cost me nothing. And I know I can do this again and again, because nature will always be here unless we stuff it up.
And then with the designs that you've made, either in your home or indoors, how long, because in nature you're saying, you know, it kind of will fade on its own, but with the ones that you make in an indoor setting, do you feel you need to leave them as they are for a certain amount of time? Or do you let people come interact with them, but do you kind of dismantle them?
Yes, a lot of times children will come and love touching it. And again, this is part where you have to mentally prepare yourself that you cannot hold on to this, because it's not meant to last. And again, this is something I think we all struggle with, that we want to hold on to everything. And I feel like it's good to know that we can't. Because I know, and for me, it's this process that I can appreciate the beauty at the moment, and then it's gone. And because of this not costing anything, and I just go out into the garden or somewhere on the footpath, and I see some things lying, and I think, oh, I haven't done anything with this one yet. And sometimes it's hard to go for a walk because I see so many things that I could do things with.
And you said there was one where you did it in public and you got some strange looks. Were there any other ones where you got funny reactions or people stopping to stare?
What people say a lot of times is that it makes them look at leaves, at blossoms, at gum nuts in a different way, because a lot of people say they just see stuff lying on the ground. They don't look at it as something that you could do something with. And I feel like if I can awaken people's perception of what is around them in their everyday environment, that will also bring them a certain satisfaction again. And I feel like if this is the art form that will help them, then I have achieved my purpose. And for me, it's not even, I just love doing it. And I can see the response I get is really, really, really helpful.
Yeah. And then I know that every photo has a quote that you said matches it.
Mm-hmm.
With your quotes, were they kind of quotes that you had stored and meant something to you, or did you have to do a little bit of research? I
did do a fair bit of research, because I wanted to get quotes that would really kind of complement the designs. See, so for example, this one here, for everyone has been made for some particular work, and the desire for that work has been put into every heart. So every one of us has a purpose, and some of us take a long time to realize that. Some of us, we always struggle with ourselves as to what is our purpose here in life, and what are we really supposed to do. And it reminds me forever of this girl that is very difficult and finds it very hard to make friends, because she has a very abrasive character. But remembering her face, the way she became involved with this design was just absolutely beautiful. And I feel like if I was able to give her happiness for that one day, that she can remember, again, that's the greatest satisfaction that I can take away from here.
And I can see that throughout the book, we're talking about each moment and photo pertains to a certain memory. So How long has this book been in the making? Over how many, is it years?
Well, I would have to go back and think of the oldest heart, which would have to be probably this one, 2012. So this is 9 years old.
Wow.
There was another heart that I had in the prototype that I could not use in here because it was not the resolution wasn't good enough. This one I haven't spoken about at all. This one was made in Toowoomba at St. Joseph's College, where I did an artist in residence experience, which was absolutely amazing. We used only camellia blossoms, and I made this heart labyrinth, and it was for NAIDOC Week 2018. And the theme of NAIDOC Week in 2018 was "Because of Her, We Can." And when we had finished it, I asked the students if they wanted to walk it. They could, but they would have to do it quietly without speaking. And I wanted them to think of their favorite female relative or their mum. And it was incredible to see how many came out crying.
Oh.
And the labyrinth was not destroyed until the wind blew it away.
Wow.
And this was on the sports oval. So you can imagine for this design to lie on a sports oval where kids are running around all the time, but it was not touched. It actually stayed there until the wind blew it away.
And then what's your favorite medium to work with within nature? Is it petals? Is it spices? Or you don't really have a preference?
It depends what I find. It depends where I am. If I see something, and I say it really is like the
And when the hand starts
yes.
twitching.
When I get this tingle in my fingers, I feel like, oh, I have to go do something. I mean, this design has really inspired me. I was telling my friends, there's a chance that I might be able to go to Nhulunbuy during the Christmas period. And I feel like it would be wonderful to use a design like this labyrinth and make it a bit more permanent, using maybe termite mounts or something like this. So you could make it a community project and make it so that both Indigenous people and white people can walk it, and then use that as a reconciliation exercise. And leave a heart like this somewhere at the outskirts of a community where people can go there. And if we have issues of conflict, let's go and walk the labyrinth. Because we cannot change the past, we can only change the future. And I feel like the space created by that design, the intention is love. And I feel like if you want to find love, you're not going to get very far, because eventually love is going to win. And I think if we could do this in some remote communities, maybe it's a chance to change something.
Yeah. And so that design, you said you did that when you were doing an artist in
Residence, yeah.
program. Are you able to tell us more about that?
I do it when I've done another one recently. Well, not so recently because with COVID it has been a bit difficult, but I've done altogether 4 or 5 now. One was out in Chinchilla at a Christian college, and we made some really interesting designs on the ground with the kids from year 1 and year 2. And in the end, we called it an octopus tree, because I simply made legs of different things attached to the trunk of the tree. And the kids were just so absorbed in doing it. And everybody walked away from the experience happy. And the children, you could see the children were taken by the fact that they were doing something unusual. And yet it was there around them. We went and collected the leaves and the blossoms, and they could see how you could use the things that are lying around to make something beautiful. And if I just want to show them that we don't need to go to a shop. Hello. We don't need to go to a shop in order to buy ingredients so I can do some artwork. So,
and I think that's a quality where, as a child, you do have that curiosity where you're always looking around, and like you're saying, your fingers start going.
Yeah.
But I feel like as adults, we tend to lose that. So I think it's nice that your book kind of lets us look at nature again.
returning to. And as a child, I mean, I grew up in a very small Austrian mountain village, and there were no things to play with. We had to find our own toys. And for me, in springtime, to go out and to see the first flowers and be able to make something with what we used to play with, pine cones. They were our toys. So maybe this is where my inspiration came from originally, I don't know. And then seeing it in the desert, I just think there is innate satisfaction waiting and available again and again at no cost. Just a bit of time and fantasy or imagination.
Do you think that imagination is a little bit lost given
Absolutely.
kids are so involved with technology nowadays?
Yeah. And this is, I find this, the frustration I find now is that I would love to do more of this, but I'm forced to do a lot of technology. And this lady here knows exactly how frustrated I get with technology, because she has been trying to get me to do my own website. And I just said, I'd rather go out and play with my dirt. But I think if we can complement each other, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
But children, I see this in school all the time, that kids just don't know what to do. And some, again, at the Ananda Youth Mental Health unit, I worked with the young people. Some of them needed to be given very exact and detailed instructions, what to take now, what to take next, what not to use. And I was hoping that they would really just come out of their own imagination, but there was nothing, or very, very little, let's put it that way. However, they all enjoyed doing it. So it was a really, really interesting experience.
And do you think here on out you will be most interested in photography, or do you think you're going to do children's writing again, doing children's books? Or is this kind of your way forward now? I
have got quite a few manuscripts lying at home. And as anybody who has tried to produce a book will know, it's a very frustrating process. And even though one of your paper babies has made it, it doesn't mean that it becomes any easier, or at least not a lot. And I'm very, very proud of My Two Blankets, the way it has gone, and just amazed, really.
Are you able to tell us more about the stage production yet, or is that under wraps?
I'm supposed to go and do a presentation of My Two Blankets to the theatre company, so that they can see what I do with it. And then I said, I'm happy for them to go to town and put their perspective on it. And it will not happen this year, and most likely not next year, but maybe towards the end of next year in 2023.
And just for people in the audience and on our Zoom audience as well, who might not know, are you able to just give us a very brief synopsis of My Two Blankets?
My Two Blankets is all about learning languages, what it feels like when you have to learn a language. But it's also a story about how to adapt to change, and especially change if you don't want it. And that's why I believe My Two Blankets is a book for a picture book for adults, because it tells us that we all have situations in our lives when we don't get what we want, and we have to create a new blanket. And the blanket is, of course, a metaphor for the new life that we have to make for ourselves.
And when you're talking about learning languages, so you did a master's in Russian. So was there something where you were learning that you've then put in My Two Blankets?
Well, when I do a presentation with My Two Blankets, I usually say I have learned several languages, but I chose to learn them. I was not forced to it. Whereas in My Two Blankets, the main character, she as a child is taken to another country because she has to. So she is never asked, do you want to learn this language? She's thrown into it. So the big difference for me was it was my voluntary choice, really my own choice, that I wanted to do this. And I've always found languages fascinating. And I think what I found so interesting, I always thought everybody saw a language as a blanket. Turned out people don't, most people don't. And maybe that's why it has taken such a hold in our children's literature world, because it's a different way of looking at languages.
Are there any other questions from the audience tonight? Everyone's feeling shy?
Go on. You've done a very good job.
That's all right. It's my job.
Nice to see.
Your books, we couldn't remember if there's 3 or 4. There's My Two Blankets. There's
The Dream Peddler. Yep.
And this one.
This one.
Another one between.
There was one that I translated, which was a charity project from the publisher that produced The Dream Peddler, and it's called Where Happiness Hides. And I did the German translation, and it's a really lovely story about, and it was actually produced very much at the beginning of COVID. And it's available, it's only available as an ebook, but it's a really sweet story. So that's the other one that I have done. And as I have sent off some manuscripts recently, and I'm once again waiting. It's like being pregnant, you don't know if you are. Any other questions?
All right. Well,
Okay.
we're toward the end anyway. Jim, do you have any parting words you'd like to give?
Well, this has all been enlightening. I could probably quote some of the scientific names for the plants that I planted. Yeah, this idea of ephemeral, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
One of the questions I was going to ask is, have you ever been tempted to actually do a painting? But I think that would destroy the entire ethos of what you do.
Yeah.
Because it'd be permanent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I pretty much could answer that question myself. But, I think this is just another example of your brilliant sort of creativeness.
Thank you. I mean, I don't see it as anything. It's really funny because I always feel like people say, "Oh, you're so clever," and I feel like I'm just using some leaves and I'm just using some.
No one else is doing it.
Yeah. And I feel
You're the first to do something. You're the clever one. But no, I think this is fantastic. I want to buy a copy and get it signed.
Okay, all right.
Alrighty, well,
If I could just say a few things.
sorry.
You were supposed to wear.
Yeah, I was supposed to. I actually had a matching tie, exactly the same pattern.
This is son number 2.
I just
Irena.
I remember when I was like 13 and my split up divorce growing up, and I always just kind of recall, thinking and wondering, I wonder what my mum's going to do now. She's not like living at home, and who's going to cook my meals, who's going to do all these things, who's going to iron my clothes. I quickly learned how to iron. And I remember seeing her continue the teaching career, and just then progressing into more of like an entrepreneurial, passion of this project. She has a fashion label. She has multiple books that she's written, and it's phenomenal. Like I work with and coach a lot of like younger men, clients, like young entrepreneurs who are trying to start something, right? And the fear of failure or the fear of doing something often cripples most people. So to see her being, in her 60s and just like blazing a trail is for me incredibly inspiring.
It's young.
Yeah, it is. So, I share like the story of my mum and how she's, out there blazing a trail and starting businesses and inspiring me and inspiring a lot of people. So it's just massively commendable. So just a huge round of applause.
Well, I can also say the brand name that I have, Bingalam, is because of him. Because when he was a toddler, he used to say, "Let's go Bingalam, let's make Bingalam, let's do Bingalam." Nobody has ever found out what Bingalam means. But the interesting thing is a lot of people.
I know what it means. It's a secret.
Okay. But now I have a granddaughter who is 7th generation Indigenous, and a lot of people have thought it's or have asked me, is it Indigenous? And I said, I don't know, maybe not. But now, as I say, I have a granddaughter that's 7th generation Indigenous, and I feel like we've come full circle. So there we are. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for joining us. If you'd like to hang around, the bar will be open. You'll just have to be out here to have a drink. And there's copies of From My Heart to Yours at the front